Okay, so about 6 months after that, I developed asthma, and now have to take an inhaler every single day, and I smell it all the time.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Milwaukee, downtown Detroit. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We are in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Western Michigan. This is my second or third time here. And we were here a couple years ago because there is a multi-billion-dollar packaging company that's been here forever that frankly is gassing a poor black community with God knows how many volatile forms of gas. And it is now, as of recent years, spreading the emissions that they're releasing into the community has spread into other neighborhoods, white neighborhoods. And this is due to an expansion of this plant, Graphic Packaging, that was enabled by city and state politicians, including one Governor Gretchen Whitmer, with David, Joe, Ryan, Sharon, and some wonderful dogs. You guys are out planting trees, so thanks for stopping for a couple minutes. But we spoke a few years ago. I mean, just the bottom line is this on paper is a good company because it recycles cardboard. But what they are releasing into the community, I don't really truly think we know. The health department here, the same health department that helped cover up the Flint water crisis, by the way, they finally, after a 3-year study, said that they were releasing excess levels of hydrogen sulfide, which is linked to the eye irritation, respiratory issues. But they didn't really do a thorough test for much else, from what I could tell. And from what I could also tell, even though they acknowledged that the plant was emitting dangerous toxins, there's no enforcement for them to reduce emissions. There's just been a whole lot of tax breaks, this and that. So now where we are, and by the way, people are sick, specifically in the poorer black community.
We smell it all the time. Been smelling it for years. It has affected my husband's breathing, and he's on. He has asthma and breathing. He has breathing treatments. And my daughter, she had asthma about 5 years ago when she was in high school, and I kept thinking, I didn't know it at first. I was thinking she kept getting tired and tired and tired. I'm thinking, okay, so what could be wrong? I mean, you're active in school, but when I took her to the doctor, that's what it was. She had asthma.
And the health departments, their suggestion to those residents was stay inside. Stay inside.
Sick and dying.
Yeah. Sick and dying, we should say. There's been several people who have died. And I mean, this is anecdotal, but when I was there, just a block away from the plant, I got sick. My cameraman got sick, and residents are sick. So very high levels of asthma, COPD. I know of a family who, just horrible. A 17-year-old died of a severe asthma attack. And your daughter starts developing really bad asthma. And it got so bad after repeated attacks, after she's continually going to the hospital for breathing treatments. At 17 years old, what happened?
She passed away. She had been put on different machines, going into the hospital different times to see about her asthma. But the smell was getting worse, and I guess it was just making her really, really sick.
Her now 32-year-old son recently died from a lot of complications.
Yes. Anybody know Berg, the boss, DeAndre? You couldn't stop him from going outside. He played football, he ran track, he played basketball. He was with all the neighborhood kids. They was just everywhere doing everything. He was taking trips, all kind of stuff. And then we moved over here, and it just got really, 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 really bad. He was on life support. He was on 24-hour oxygen. He had to take asthma treatments, about 4 or 5 of them a day. My son went through a lot before he passed away from here.
and the common denominators, they were pretty healthy before they moved to this house a block away. So catch us up, because you guys are having to basically now, it seems, do the work that the government should be doing.
Yeah, so you mentioned the last thing of note that happened with the factory was the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services did the report and found that it was dangerous levels and offered nothing other than people should try to avoid it. Since that time, the health department, state health department had, they left with saying, we're going to stay involved, we're going to keep looking at it, and there has been no indication of any ongoing research or any effort to track what's coming out of the factory. So yeah, there's a number of people around town, some groups that are putting up a lot of different monitors and basically trying to collect the information.
Yeah, air monitor.
Yeah, right. So collect the information that we can then use to try to force the state and the federal government to do their job.
Yeah. And for you, you don't live right next to the plant, about 5-10 minutes down the road, but you, your wife, just tell people certain parts of the week you smell it worse, symptoms. Tell people what you're experiencing.
Yeah, it's real, but it's odd until you really start to think about it. We notice it in the morning. Usually you get up and go out to walk the dog, and that's when you first notice it the most. But there's days when it's bad all day. There's days when it's so bad you can't have the windows open because it comes in, it'll wake you up in the middle of the night. And Sharon's also on the Environmental Concerns Committee, and we had somebody come to the committee and say that she couldn't open her windows because the smell wakes her up in the middle of the night. This is a woman who lives on the north side, the more African American community. But it's pretty much every weekend, and it's pretty bad. It actually seems like it's worse than it was a year ago.
And on top of the smell, can you describe symptoms you, your wife, others have?
Yeah, for me, I get a headache. And my wife gets burning rashes on her skin as well. But yeah, it flows up the streets. It's really weird. You can follow it, the street, it'll go down, the next street over, you don't smell it. But that's, because I'm a mile away from the factory. For people, I have friends who live right next to it, and it's just terrible all day long, every day.
And how did you get involved with this, Joe? And have you, where you live, do you smell it at times?
All the time. I do reports to the EGLE, which is our Environmental Great Lakes Energy Department.
Also involved with the Flint water cover-up. Go ahead.
At least once a week, sometimes more, sometimes 2 or 3 times during a day. I'll smell it. About 6 months after the expansion, so what was that, 2022?
Well, it came online in 19, I believe.
Okay, so about 6 months after that, I developed asthma, and now have to take an inhaler every single day, and I smell it all the time. And I have been woken up in the middle of the night before with it drifting into my bedroom, and it's just so strong.
And how far do you live away from the plant?
I live here in the Vine neighborhood. My zip code is actually the same zip code as the north side, 49007. But we're probably, a mile and a half from the plant.
So just so people have an idea how bad this is, when we were here the first time, we were right there, and I got sick a block away. But you're smelling it in your bedroom a mile away. So imagine what folks right next to it.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine because it disrupts life here for me. I mean, like I said, the asthma where I'm having to take an inhaler every single day. I get the burning eyes, burning throat, nausea, headache, and of course it flares up the asthma, coughing almost nonstop. I mean, it's so bad you can't even have your windows open. And when it's cool like this, who wants to have their house all locked up, You
also don't want your animals breathing this in either, on top of children, the elderly. Let me ask you, because I still don't have an answer because the governor's office won't respond, but, this plant was known for decades. Air odor complaints, air, soil, water. There's been PFAS, which are those forever chemicals released by the plant. I mean, some experts have said, dozens of types of gases they're releasing. So this is all stuff the health department, the environmental department knew about the complaints. The environmental department had issued violations to them. So does it make a lot of sense then that the local and state government would then shower them? I don't even know if we have the accurate number, but tens of millions of dollars in tax breaks. And then in 2021, the state government, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, which is essentially just a board of donors, they approved over $100 million in bonds, which it's the government. It's Governor Whitmer's office.
Yeah,
Does that make sense that they approve this?
It makes sense to me because Whitmer is the corporate welfare queen. I mean, she has given millions and millions of dollars, probably billions by this point, to polluting industries with promises of not very much, not jobs. Right, they never meet their promises. And I mean, Kalamazoo is just one city in Michigan that is plagued by these polluting industries. And we have numerous ones here, Upjohn, Pharmacia, whatever you want to call them now, graphic packaging, and the legacy of paper production here. We have lots of brownfields where, they have to remediate everything before they can do anything on these properties. I mean, it's life altering, really. And I can't imagine being over there.
It's interesting because I didn't hear the corporate welfare queen in all the adoring profiles of Governor Whitmer, but the New York Times or the Washington Post, I mean, MSNBC practically fluffs her pillows during interviews. Let me ask you, Ryan, you're a local. How did you get involved in this? And it seems like a major problem, but it's not. The very little media coverage I've seen basically just regurgitates what graphic packaging says or what the health department says, but it doesn't seem to be represented in the media as an urgent problem.
No, it doesn't. I met David some years ago while canvassing out for Bernie, and we got involved in the campaign since. I recently moved here about 3 years ago into the Edison neighborhood, and while the smell doesn't creep in so far over there, I know I work security, and the old security company that I used to work for, I knew plenty of people that had to work at graphic packaging and talk about having all sorts of health issues after leaving there, whether it be asthma or different types of lung issues that were pretty much gone after they left. And not to mention, too, you look at the parks over there, it's just crazy. Every time I go out over there to the north side, you can smell it from immediately, like almost a mile away. I just don't understand how we can have this as an issue. For me, as someone as head of Southwest Michigan DSA, I run a mutual aid group that serves the homeless every Friday. And it's just crazy to think about all these homeless people out here too, or all these unhoused individuals that have to sit and breathe in the air that are on the north side. That's where the mission's at. That's where Minister's Community's at to drop in. All the resources that these people need are all on the north side, and that's where all the pollution is going. So a lot of the people down here are suffering. And when I pay attention to the news, I notice that the court case seems like a lot of things got dropped. It seems like a lot of things did not go through. And it's kind of pathetic, that we've seen the history over the years of the paper mill companies, all these different, the BP or the oil spill that happened here like 10 years ago. Like, we just have a consistent case of environmental issues, and yet we still prop up places like graphic packaging that are just polluting our entire city, so.
Should say Kalamazoo River had one of the worst oil spills in American history here. Also, should say right near graphic packaging where they're gassing this community, there's a daycare very close. There are schools that, from what I've been told, kids are not able to go out on recess all the time. Yet the governor came here, I believe, earlier this year for some type of ribbon cutting.
Whitmer arrived Monday for a ribbon cutting ceremony at a new clean energy manufacturing facility.
Very close by. Let me ask you, Sharon, you're on the Environmental Concerns Committee. Obviously, this would be one of the top concerns.
Yeah, definitely been following it for a few years and been frustrated with how long it took to get the health report out, then the lack of any action after that. It took so long. We kept asking for it. They wouldn't give us a day for when it was going to be out. And then finally, they did determine that chronic exposure, with the definition of being around that a lot, does cause health problems. And then they really haven't been doing anything except for slapping a few fines on them since. And they were able to expand. So it's been very frustrating to follow while it's so close to where people live every day.
And tell me about people in the community, because I remember after this study came out, finally the environmental department did like a little town hall with residents, and residents were pissed. And from what I could tell, the only advice they were given is if it's thick, stay home. So basically, like, close your windows, which is like be a prisoner in your home. But like, people pay taxes and like have a right to live, and but other than that, a fine, which graphic packaging doesn't care about. So it kind of just seems like, is it too strong to say that they've essentially made this a sacrifice zone for a major corporation?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't seem like they're taking any action to really change it. So, yeah, I would like to not see them in a neighborhood that's polluting people that are living there and not giving the people that are living there any help to get out of there or anything. It's just crazy how big of a factory it is right in a neighborhood. That's not something that you just see everywhere. And of course, it's a majority black neighborhood, so there's environmental justice issues all over that.
With your environmental concerns committee, have you had communications with the city? Have they responded, told you they're going to do anything? I mean, we should say the former mayor, Bobby Hopewell, who had a very tight relationship with this company gassing the community, right after he left, he was appointed by Governor Whitmer to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC, which is essentially just a board of donors. And MEDC was the one that approved this massive over $100 million bond deal to allow this company to expand in 2022. And when I say expand, they are releasing a shit ton more gas into the community. But what's the communication been like with the city and state?
Well, we've had people come in to talk about it from Lake Eagle. We just had some people come in a few months ago to the ECC, but both of those people hadn't even been with them very long, so they didn't know like anything locally about what had been like our concerns, and they clearly like were not ready for our answers. So that was via the city, but the city is always going to be not straightforward with naming names. So it's...
Sometimes you hear, I mean, it's unfortunate to have to say this, but like, oh, they won't do anything until, the white part of town starts complaining. But the white part of town has been complaining, because when they expanded, it moved into white neighborhoods. They're still not doing anything. The only thing I could think of is graphic packaging is a major employer here. It helps fund a lot of, charity, food pantries, etc. So it's kind of like we're going to prioritize the economic factors rather than the residents.
Yeah, they're always terrified of hurting or basically, making any accountability from corporations, because they, benefit from them existing there. But
you said you were involved during the Bernie days. You're hearing a lot, democracy is on the line in this election. I don't even want to get into politics, but I keep hearing about democracy, but then I go to these places. These are your representatives in this so-called democracy, and their response has been, shut your windows, stay home. I mean, it's kind of, to me, a subtle move if you want to.
And too, like if you look at a lot of these bigger cities, like Los Angeles, New York, they've been experiencing way higher real estate prices and way higher, I think you were just talking about going to Detroit, talking about gentrification. It's happening in these smaller cities, like these bigger investors here that have a lot of money. one guy that owns the Radisson here, you know, Bill Johnston. We have a lot of guys here that are looking at this place as a playground to where they can throw their money at a lot of these local politicians and all these different investments. And they're pretty much making it to where whatever their say, it goes. If you look at the city commission meetings, whenever residents have a lot of their concerns to bring up, you know, you might get a few pieces of lip service from the commissioners, but then they all vote in line for the same all the residents did not want, you know. And you do a polling of what the residents want. It's majority of things the commission is not doing or the city is not doing. So when you look at it, like, democracy is on the line. You know, if you look at some of these smaller cities, it's kind of not even here, you know. We really got to work on it, you know. And a lot of things are not being said about these smaller towns of 100 to 120, 140,000. But, like, you know, they're the ones that are going to be the start of all this, because these are where all these smaller millionaires and billionaires are going to put all their money in, you know. So
it's their play toy, basically. And Joe, I'm glad you corrected me. I mean, people are dying. I know one woman, Deanne. She lives a block away. Her 17-year-old daughter had a severe asthma attack, died. Her 32-year-old son was fairly healthy before they moved there. He had all sorts of, by the end, he was on oxygen 24/7. He died, I believe, earlier this year. I'm talking to residents in that neighborhood. They can't have people over because it smells so bad.
And it affects me and my family a lot, because in the summer we can't even open our windows due to the smell at all. My daughter's graduation party was in my backyard, and I was so embarrassed because all I smelled was a pollution. It smelled like dog. It smelled like a sewage.
So it's the short term, and who knows how many years this is taking off people's lives.
Right. So I'm a nurse, and I worked at a dialysis center right downtown, and most of our patients were people of color from the north side, and they all had kidney cancer. They all had, you know, all kinds of breathing problems, dialysis. I mean, it's really a crime. It really is a crime against, you know, our city. And
yet Governor Whitmer, who you called a corporate welfare queen, she's going around to Detroit and other black communities to tell them why they need to vote for the Democrats. Yeah. Yet she helped this company expand.
Yeah. Well, our democracy has kind of been usurped here in Kalamazoo because we have this thing called the Foundation for Excellence. And it's basically a billionaire boys club. And they kind of set the agenda for the city. I mean, what they want to happen happens. Like this arena that they're building, it's destroying small businesses because with the construction, people can't even get to these businesses. So they're putting in this arena that is going to seat so many people, and it's funded by the billionaires, the Johnsons, the Upjohns, the other city elites that live here, and nobody wants it. But they donated max amount of donations to the county and city government to get this arena that nobody wants. You know, and like I said, it's destroying small businesses because all of the construction, I mean, they've had to do, you know, for power upgrades and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we just did a podcast for our little Kalamazoo Earth Day festival that we have, and it was all about the small businesses that have been affected. Their sales are like 50% down from what it should be, and they don't know if they're going to be able to keep the doors open. You know, and these are places that have been here for decades.
And a lot of times I know in Philadelphia, I've seen when there's that kind of construction that blocks small businesses.
Adding insult to injury, the city's been doing construction out here.
Yeah, the city started a municipal project literally right on my side, adjacent street, which I have a cafe city license. So the entire side of my building was basically tables for people for outside. So during the pandemic, it was great. People were able to, you know, sit outside 6 feet apart. And then when the pandemic stopped, people were more than happy to come inside, you know, and we socially distanced for a lot longer than most places did. And then the second that the ban was lifted entirely, the city put all the workers back to work, and their first big project was ripping up my side street, and that's been since February.
And they haven't
February,
compensated?
March, April, May, June, July. I'm coming 6 months into this project.
Have they compensated you if you're...
Listen, I shook the tree for grants. Many phone calls, many emails, nothing.
They give some money to the small
The
businesses.
city has no plan to help the small businesses. They don't even listen to them.
At one point, they offered a shuttle.
Yeah.
They offered a shuttle.
Yes,
Yeah,
for people to
senior
get to it.
citizens to get to the stores that are affected by construction, they offered a shuttle, and nobody took it, so it was only like 2 days.